It's another edition of the Stretch Big podcast. It's been a little bit, but it is getting colder outside. The leaves are changing colors. Ken Palm dropped rankings this week. College basketball is close, folks. It is mid-October. We're halfway through college football season, and whether the football sickos like it or not, college basketball is close. It is scrimmage season, whether that be secret scrimmages, charity exhibition games, or as Nebraska played on Sunday at the Bob Devaney Sports Center, an inter-squad scrimmage in an arena purposed for volleyball. But it is scrimmage season nonetheless. I've got some thoughts a couple days after the fact. I know it's been a little bit. I've been busy. I was at Big Ten Media Day a couple weeks ago. I wanted to do a pod after that, but it's just been a really, really long couple months, to put it lightly. Just kind of trying to figure things out, ramp things up before college basketball gets here. And it's a new look. It's a new look for the podcast. So it's going to be a big, pretty fun next couple months. And this is where we're kicking it off. Season 2 of the pod is officially here. And let's have some fun, folks. Let's have some fun. It's the fall. It's my favorite time of year. And let's get into some thoughts. But first, sponsorship. This season, the Stretch Big podcast is proudly presented by Bird Darts, and homegrown original Nebraska golf company, and the original premium pack of golf tees. If you're watching on YouTube, I've got one of them in my hand. Bird Darts was founded and started as the brainchild of one of the smartest people I know, one of my former coworkers on the basketball staff at Nebraska, Brett Sapp. And these are flying online. Bird Darts, they got the premium tees. You can get them in packs, or you can get them even in cartons. They've got the apparel. I've got the hat on right now, and it's really sleek, really well designed stuff. That's the first thing you notice is the packaging, really sleek and unique. And they even do custom packs. If you've got a company golf outing coming up, a scramble fundraiser, you want to hand out some custom packs for, or even just a family outing you want to have as a keepsake for everyone on the course that day. It'll help amplify your event, amplify your brand, promo, retail. The possibilities are endless. Each of these packs, they have 18 bamboo tees, and they're where you need your tees to be on the course, in your pocket, in your hand, in the pack, not spread throughout your bag, not making a mess. You're not digging through random pockets in your golf bag looking for tees. They're right there with you. And if you're playing with strangers, they're sure to break the ice. A little icebreaker. You pull this out of your pocket, someone's going to ask where you got it. That's for sure. With any group, whether it's your family members, friends, or just strangers, because there was an extra spot and you decided to be the fourth with some randoms for a round of golf. Fall golf is one of my favorite guilty pleasures. I know it's getting cold outside, but I enjoy the fall golf. So get yourself some tees for the fall, or stock up for the spring. It's time to expect more from your golf tees. Join the flock today. birddarts.com. Swing away. So on Sunday at the Devaney Center, Nebraska played an inter-squad scrimmage. It got announced a couple weeks back. It was the second free to the public event that Nebraska had hosted in a little over 2 weeks. They did the opening night in the rail yard on a Friday night. I was not in attendance for that a couple weeks back, but they just did like a meet the team, some intros, an outdoor 3-point contest, a combined event with your preseason number 23 Nebraska women's basketball team. That came out today. That's pretty cool to see for Amy Williams' crew. But that was a couple weeks ago. And then this past Sunday, Nebraska went back to the Bob Devaney Center, the Bob Devaney Sports Center, for the first time since the last game there back in the spring of 2013, when Nebraska beat Minnesota in some throwback jerseys, and Brandon Ubell had a big game. I remember way too much about that game for how long ago it was, but it was a pretty cool thing to be in the building for on Sunday. It is, a scrimmage, so it's got to be taken with a grain of salt, obviously. But there were some things that I liked. There were some things that stood out, and I'll lead off with this. There was nothing that really shocked or surprised me. They played 16-minute halves. I thought the teams were split, interestingly, to put it lightly. One team definitely had a big size and athleticism advantage over the other team, but that was, for the most part, things looked the way that I kind of expected them to look. So the red team beat the white team 66-50. Like I said, they played 16-minute halves. The red team scored 41 points in the first half, and then the second half was a little closer, but I'm not going to break down play-by-play or minute by minute, anything like that. Just going to give some general thoughts and takeaways. The red team, which looks like your ones at the moment. The starting lineup was Riley Worcester, Bryce Williams, Juwan Gary, Berke Buyuktanjel, and Braxton Mia. The white team, the starting lineup was Aaron Eulis, Connor Essegian, Sam Hoiberg, Gavin Griffiths, and Andrew Morgan. And then the walk-ons and the two true freshmen were split between the teams. Bryce Williams did Bryce Williams things. After talking to him at Big Ten Media Day, hearing from Fred Hoiberg, it was pretty clear that the goal this summer for Nebraska has been for Bryce Williams to become a total all around player. We saw plenty of flashes from Bryce Williams last year, especially the way he finished the season in the Big Ten tournament and then the NCAA tournament. He had big games against Indiana, Illinois, and Texas A&M. Scored more than 20 points in all those games. Something that jumped out to me, he had a little more raise on his jump shot, got off the ground a little more. It's called a jump shot for a reason. You're supposed to jump a little bit. He got off the ground more so a couple times. He finished with 18. He did take 15 shots. But like I said, it's a scrimmage. Can't overthink it too much. And I know something that a lot of people were reacting to right away was the three-point shooting, wondering where's the three-point shooting going to be. The players tried to downplay it, say we shoot good every day. 95% sure that the first shots these guys got up in the Devaney Center was the morning of the scrimmage, possibly even in pregame warmups. There were back-to-back Nebraska volleyball games the 2 nights before. And whether it takes some getting used to shoot when in a gym you're not accustomed to shooting in, especially one that's, set up for volleyball and the bleachers on the ends were up, and it was visually, depth perception wise, I'm sure it was a little different for the guys on the team. They combined shot 15 for 54 from three, which is not pretty, but I'm not gonna put too much stock into that, considering it was a one-off inter squad in a volleyball arena. So I'm not gonna that may be rainbows and butterflies, call it sunshine pumping or whatever you want to call it, but I'm not putting too much stock into an inter squad scrimmage to begin with, let alone into shooting splits. But Bryce Williams had 18 points. Berke Buyuktanjel with 13 and 13. He looks every bit of 6'10". I will say that. The red team had the clear size advantage with Worcester at 6'4", Williams at 6'6", Gary 6'6", Buyuktanjel 6'10", and Braxton Mia 7'1". A clear size advantage. Might be the tallest lineup Nebraska's rolled out for a basketball game since the late 80s. They're the Rich King era. That would maybe be my guess, but it's definitely a big lineup for sure. The white team was led by Connor Essegian. He had 20 points, but he took 16 shots. 12 of those 16 were threes. He shoots 6 of 12 from three. Definitely went on a heater toward the end of the first half and then start the second half as well. And he's the only guy on the white team that made more than 1 3. Gavin Griffiths took 7, only made 1. Nick Janowski took 5. He only made 1. The red team, I thought it was no coincidence that the first guy that made a 3 was Cale Jacobson, who has played multiple state tournament games during his illustrious high school career at Ashland Greenwood at the Devaney Center. So he was the first guy to make a 3, the first guy to make multiple. And he's the only guy not named Bryce Williams who made multiple 3s for the red team. Williams 2 for 8, Jacobson 2 for 3, 1 for 5 for Juwan Gary, 1 for 4 for Berke. Riley Worcester took 1 and made 1. Braden Frager for 3, and that was that for the red team, 3-point shooting wise. But like I said, not gonna think too much into it, considering the setting and all the circumstances that went into that on Sunday. What stood out that impressed me the most? The ball movement. I thought there was crisp passing, good cuts, good offense as it can look for a scrimmage. I'm trying to be as level-headed and not too over the top. It's an inner squad. I didn't write about it. I wanted to talk about it quicker. I went back and um, just I looked through my notes and watched the cinematic recap, and I'm just I'm gonna try to talk about this in as reasonable of a way as possible, because the people needed a podcast, and we can. I'd love to talk all about Kurt Signetti and Indiana football, but we might have some football stuff next week. This is the first taste of scratching the basketball itch in person for me and for plenty of others. I mean, the ball movement, especially from your 2 point guards, Riley Worcester for the red team, Aaron Eulis for the white. I mean, Raleigh, he only took one shot in the first half. He was definitely looking to make plays for others, as evidenced by his 9 assists and only one turnover. Aaron Eulis finished with an assist and a turnover, but he was pushing the pace. Fred Hoiberg talked about Big Ten Media Day, just how quick Aaron Eulis can initiate, get out, run. He's definitely, he's an athletic dude. I could see him being like a, you know, get in your face defender off the bench. I mean, he's going to play. He's going to be in the rotation, especially with the 1 year running the scout team under his belt. But Raleigh Worcester looked as good as advertised. I was really high on the ad when they landed him in the portal out of Utah, and he just looks like a level-headed, really smart point guard who's good. He reminds. I've said on a couple other shows that he reminds me of Sam Greasel, just in terms of just his mantra. He's going to make the right read. He's going to make the right pass. He's not going to like make any boneheaded decisions, boneheaded plays that could lose you basketball games. And I think if he's going to take threes, he's going to take smart threes. I think Fred Hoiberg has probably been playing shot doctor with him a little bit, trying to get his numbers up. I mean, it's weird because he's an 80% free throw shooter, but his 3 point numbers are a little goofy if you look at them. Free throw shooting and 3 point shooting are obviously two completely different things. But if you've got touch, it can translate. So I'm interested to see how big of a jump Raleigh can take from a 3 point shooting perspective this season for Nebraska. I really was impressed with Berke too. We saw point forward Berke a little bit, bringing the ball up the court, multiple possessions. He had a couple assists as well. I think they would like him to be not the heir apparent to the rink mass Derek Walker playmaking big man, but I think the closest thing to that on this roster is Berke. He's just he's got a good handle. We've heard his teammates and his head coach talk about his basketball IQ. I think he's the candidate to be the closest thing to that. Now, to what extent is the question, and we'll have to wait, as the season goes on, and the non-con, which I think leaves plenty of opportunities to play with lineups and play with rotations and scheme. I think Berke is going to get a chance to be, a pleasant surprise. He's one of the three, bounce back guys that they took out of the portal. He had not the best freshman season at UCLA. The other two are Essegian and Griffiths, your bounce back candidates. So that's my thoughts on the red team. Braxton Mia also had 9 rebounds. I forget how many of them were on the offensive end. He was kind of just swallowing up the glass. He had 5 points. Made a free throw when he made 1 of 2 free throws when he got fouled. All his shots were at the rim. Nothing too crazy. I think he only had the 1 dunk. But if he's going to be able to, just be inside and swallow up rebounds, Nebraska can't ask for much more. I don't think he's going to be too crazy of an offensive threat, aside from rim running and catching lobs. I don't think there's going to be anything too crazy or out of control on the offensive end from Braxton Mia. Braden Frager, he started off 3 for 3. He looked like he belonged. Braden Frager, people forget. I think it's going to become the Jason Tatum is 19 years old joke for this Nebraska team. If Braden Frager ever sees the floor, Braden Frager is 17 years old. He should be a senior at Lincoln Southwest. He reclassed, graduated early to join the team early, and he looked the part. He looked the part. I don't know how much he's going to see the court in his true freshman season. Will he get some run in the non-con against, the UT Rio Grande Valley Bethune-Cookmans of the world? I wouldn't be shocked by it. He's got a Big Ten body. He's got, like I said, he looks the part. You often hear the term late bloomer. I think Braden Frager's an early bloomer. He's definitely, ahead of schedule for most guys that should be seniors in high school, but he's a true freshman on a Big Ten basketball team. So he's definitely ahead of schedule physically. His shot looks pretty good, I thought, and he definitely definitely looked the part. He only, he didn't play. He played 18 minutes of the 32 that were played on Sunday, and he looked the part the entire time that he was on the floor. Thoughts on the white team? Connor Essegian, there's been some interesting discourse around him. People, whether it be on my Twitter feed or on radio spots that I've done, have tried to comp him to Keisei Tominaga. Um, and I don't think he's going to match that personality or energy or scoring output. I don't think he's going to be an all league guy. Casey was an all league guy last year, but there are similarities. There are definitely plenty of similarities in the comp. A guy with a lightning quick release who's going to want to try to get going from three, who can get going from three in a hurry. We saw it on Sunday. Nebraska saw it in person last year at the Kohl Center when he had his season high output against Nebraska. There are also some questions on the defensive end with Connor, just like there were with Casey. If he's not in the starting five on opening night, he's definitely your sixth man. We definitely saw Nebraska drawing up some baseline out of bounds plays for him that were similar to what they did for CJ Wilcher these last couple years. So I think that it's kind of a hybrid comp. Obviously he can be your lightning rod. I think he's going to be a fan favorite, just his personality. He's been attending volleyball games, football games. He's very active online. I think he's going to be a fan favorite, but I think he's going to be more in that CJ Wilcher role, the guy off the bench who's got one clear and evident job, and that's to come in and make shots. But I think there could be some games this year where he's your fifth starter. He could slide in at the two. But that's the thing with this team. There's a lot of lineup possibilities to play with. And it's, Fred Hoiberg has said as much. He thinks this is his most versatile team at Nebraska. I talked about Ulis a little bit. He was really quick. He initiated well. Didn't look rusty. He hadn't been in a live game situation in more than a year since the 2023 NCAA tournament at Iowa. And obviously, this is just inter-squad scrimmage. I know they've scrimmaged in practice. He ran the scout team last year, but it was not even a little bit of rust. I think he's going to be in your rotation. I think he's going to be a good candidate to be, a defensive, get up in your face, pick a guy up, guard in the backcourt. I think there could be times where him and Riley Worcester are on the court together. But I think, as I've said all summer, Nebraska has two true point guards on this roster. That's two more than they had last season. Andrew Morgan played pretty physical, I thought, on offense. Defensively, I mean, I think he's going to be very pick and roll, heavy diet of pick and roll when he's in the game, going to the rim, trying to play inside. He attempted 1 3, didn't go in. Um, I've heard they were really high on him when they landed him. He definitely showed some flashes throughout the spring and summer for Nebraska. I'm interested to see what his role looks like early on. Um, because I don't think Braxton Mia is going to be playing entire games. He got a little fatigued toward the end. So I mean, Andrew Morgan, he's going to play. He's your backup five. There could be lineups with him and Berkay on the floor together. But that was kind of a guy I was looking to see more from. If you can have a guy you're looking to see more from in a inter squad scrimmage, like I said, I've got all these all these qualifiers. But this is just what I saw, how I saw it. Some thoughts on guys who stood out. Um, Nick Janowski. If you have heard me over the summer, I made some references. This one obviously to the Podfather himself, Bill Simmons. One of his go-tos is been on Redfin, been on Zillow, looking for property on fill in the blank island, and I alluded to looking for some property on Nick Janowski Island. And he's in a similar vein to Frager. I think there are going to be some times in the non-con where he gets in the game, he plays, he can hit a three, gets some, if Nebraska needs a shot, he could go in and make a shot. I don't know how much he's going to play. This is a deep team. This is an old team. This is and if you're a younger guy on a really old team, you got to bust your ass to see the court. And both of these guys are pretty high level, true freshmen. So I think they both will get their chance. Exhibition season, early non-con. But I don't know how much we see of either Nick Janowski or Braden Frager. Um, and then the last guy I'll mention is Juwan Gary. Obviously, he was at Big Ten Media Day with Bryce Williams. He's clearly one of the two, who will be the more front-facing guys on this team this season. Um, the three-point shooting, I hope he isn't too for the sake of Nebraska, this team, they're gonna need shot making. That's the kind of the big overarching question with this team is 3-point shooting and how much of it can you replace from last season? You lose Tominaga, you lose CJ Wilcher, you lose even Jamarcus Lawrence, who made some big threes. And you're betting on guys who haven't been great shooters like Gary, like Worcester, like Berkey last year, even though he was just a freshman. You're hoping on improvement from them while also hoping on bounce backs from Essegian and Griffiths. And the improvement from Jawan Gary, we heard about it going into last year. There were still plenty of games where I think he shot the ball too much. Um, Somebody who used to sit next to me at Nebraska games 2 seasons ago, the Greasel Bandamel year, whenever Juwan would take a three, would say, "There's a reason you're open out there, Juwan." And obviously, he took five, he only made one. But for the sake of this Nebraska team, I hope that Juwan Gary does not become too perimeter focused. I hope if he's taking threes, he's taking smart threes and he's not forcing them. But once again, this is just coming after an inter squad scrimmage. He was definitely hunting some threes, but he still had some rebounds and I mean, he's the second most important player on this team behind Bryce Williams, just in terms of leadership, experience. Before last season, he was the only guy on the roster that had played in the NCAA tournament, and obviously Nebraska finished last season in the NCAA tournament for the first time in a decade. And if you look at some of the analytical models, like Evan Maikawa's numbers that dropped this week, he's got Jawan Gary as Nebraska's most valuable player based on his analytics. I don't know Evan's algorithm all that well, but he was really high on Jawan Gary last year too. So he's important. You've heard me talk about it, whether it be on this show, my previous pod, the proverbial junkyard dog, Jawan Gary. I'm he's gonna be a starter all season, barring something drastic. All in all, it was a cool Sunday afternoon at the Devaney Center. Um, I guess there had been talks about trying to get this game played at the NU Coliseum, which would have been really cool for Fred Hoiberg, given that's where his grandfather coached Husker basketball in the 50s. But nonetheless, it was a cool event. It'd be cool if they did something every year at the Devaney Center. Just it's to honor the past. I'm sure it was cool for Kemp Pavelka to call another game in there. Jake Muehlhausen, great memories as a player there as well. It was really cool. I hadn't been in the Devaney Center for a basketball game since the 2013 Class A state final, my freshman year of high school, which is a terrifying thing to think about. Um, but that was the last time I had been in the Devaney Center for a basketball game. So was a really cool event. And if you weren't there, you just heard my thoughts on it. I saw them all with my own four eyes. But once again, not going to put too much stock into anything that took place on Sunday. But I've definitely I had thoughts and observations, and there they were. So next on the docket for Nebraska is a secret, in quotes. I think I'm just going to call it a closed door scrimmage. It's a return trip to Salt Lake to take on Craig Smith's Utah Utes, who came to PBA last year. And then that closed door scrimmage, we learned at Big Ten Media Day that Raleigh Worcester hit 4 threes on Nebraska in the first half of last season's scrimmage. And Fred Hoiberg joked that was when he realized that Raleigh likes to shoot at PBA. Craig Smith, I believe, is going into his 4th or 5th season as the head coach at Utah. It's could not be the best season for the Utes. They lost Raleigh. They lost Davion Smith to St. John's in the portal. Um, who was the other? Braden Carlson. He was a senior on last year's team. For reference, Utah is projected to finish third to last in the Big 12 in the preseason. Ken Palm, they're in as the 82nd team in the country. Looking at the Ken Palm page, obviously Craig Smith, former Nebraska assistant, um, goes from Utah State to Utah. It's been a weird time there for him. They've been up and down. Looking at their roster, forgot that that's where Mongolian Mike wound up. He flirted with Nebraska once. Lawson Lovering, Colorado transfer, saw him up close in the charity exhibition game a couple years ago. Looking at their roster on Bart Torvik, but they're projected to go 16-15 on the season and 7-13 in the Big 12 because they are in the Big 12 now. People forget. So they will be, um, it's not a crazy test for Nebraska. The altitude may be the biggest test. Playing at the Huntsman Center out there in Salt Lake, but that's going to be early on Saturday morning, probably right around the same time Nebraska football is kicking off in Bloomington. Will be when the closed door scrimmage is getting underway in Salt Lake. I'm interested to see what leaks out from that. I think Nebraska should win. They won the first half last year when Utah was a better team. They went 22-15 last year. And they were a better team. They had more dudes. They had Davion Smith. They had Raleigh. They had Braden Carlson. I thought they were a solid team. They were an NIT. They were an NIT team a year ago. So I think Nebraska should win this closed door scrimmage. Not gonna overreact to that either, but Craig Smith recruits smart players, high basketball IQ guys. They play hard. They play the motion offense similar to what Nebraska played under Tim Miles. They're going to play tough defense too. So it'll be an interesting test, but I think Nebraska should come out on top. We'll see what score or anything comes from Nebraska Utah on Saturday, and then a little over 10 days later will be the exhibition against Grand Valley State at Pinnacle Bank Arena, Division II. Grand Valley State out of Michigan. Their head coach is Cornell Mann, former Fred Hoiberg Iowa State assistant. So I'm going to guess that is why that is the exhibition on the schedule for Nebraska this season. If you listened to this podcast a season ago, most of the episodes I ended by doing a look around the three big basketball dork analytics sites, Ken Palm, Bart Torvik, and Evan Mayakawa. So that's how we're going to wrap up this short, big scrimmage overreaction pod today with some big dork stats overreaction. Preseason Ken Palm came out earlier this week. He's got the Big Ten listed as the third toughest conference in the country behind the SEC and the Big 12. One of those conferences got talked about on this podcast this summer, not the Big 12, but you get the point. Nebraska is picked. Nebraska is picked 13th in Ken Palm for the Big Ten, one spot below where they were picked in the unofficial preseason media poll. Ken Palm preseason projection has them 9-11 in the conference and 16-13 overall. I was reminded that prior to last season, Ken Palm had Nebraska going 17-14. So around similar. They're 56 in the country. They're picked 13th in the Big Ten. The most ridiculous Big Ten basketball thing to come from preseason Ken Palm. It is now an 18-team conference, and all 18 Big Ten teams were in the top 75 on Ken Palm before the season. There were only 3 projected results in the Big Ten on Ken Palm that were double-digit wins for the winning team. They were all Purdue home games. Purdue Rutgers, Purdue USC, and Purdue Nebraska. Those were the only 3 single game conference game results in the Big Ten projected to be double digit deficits. So Purdue, they were picked to win the league by the media, picked to win the league on Ken Palm, Torvik, and on Evan Mayakawa. I'll have more Big Ten type preview stuff as we get closer to the season. Hopefully, bring on some guests from around the league to give a proper preview of the conference as a whole. But that's the Ken Palm. Torvik, Nebraska is picked. You get to see me count. Counting is hard. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the audio, you get to see me count. They're also 13th on Torvik, and then they are I believe number 52 overall. Yeah, number 52 in the country on Evan Maikawa, number 47 in the country on Torvik. Has them 17 and 12, 10 and 10 in the conference. Bart Torvik also has 9 of the 18 teams in the Big Ten going 10 and 10, which would be painfully on brand for the Big Ten from top to bottom. And then, yeah, Evan Maikawa has the Nebraska 50. What did I say? 52nd, 53rd. Yeah, 52nd overall, and in the country, and then they are 13th. They're 13th across the board on the three analytics sites, and they were tied for 12th in the preseason media poll that was before Big Ten Media Days. So the media and the analytics, the algorithm, are thinking similar in terms of where Nebraska finishes. So that is it. It's as Juwan Gary said at Big Ten Media Day. It's called preseason for a reason. So we'll see how it plays out. We are less than a month away from the regular season kicking off. And it's going to be a really fun year. It's going to be a really fun season on this podcast. This is what we call a tease. The next episode, I'll be talking with Tate Frazier from The Ringer. Going to be really, really cool for me. I've been listening to Tate do podcasts for close to a decade now, which is pretty daunting. Kind of means I'm getting old. But you may know him as the host of One Shining Podcast, former co-host of Titus and Tate. He's back at the Ringer now for his second stint, and he'll be hopping on to talk big picture college basketball storylines going into the season. So look forward to that. That'll be really, really fun. If you just need reasons to get a little pumped up for college basketball in general, be really fun talking to Tate. Really looking forward to that. And then, like I said, preseason preview stuff. We'll have a Nebraska roster breakdown, deep dive, all that good stuff coming here pretty soon. And then the other thing is this is on YouTube. This podcast is on YouTube now. Big shout out to my friends at Huskers Illustrated. They're going to be on the Huskers, not Huskers Illustrated. Shout out to them. They're my magazine. But shout out to my friends at Husker Max. They're going to be putting the podcast on their YouTube channel this year, sharing the pod on their website as well. So big thank you to those guys for helping spread the word for the show. And big shout outs to everybody. Anybody who's going to help spread the word for the pod, you're appreciated. So be sure to subscribe to the Husker Max YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast if this is your first time listening on Apple or Spotify. If you're a returning listener, leave a review, leave a rating, do your podcast chores. It's very much appreciated. It helps me out to the max. You can follow the pod on Twitter as well at StretchBigPod. Maybe sharing some additional thoughts on the Big Ten, Nebraska, stuff in general over on that Twitter feed, and obviously going to be promoting as well. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob A. Bigelow. A little big scrimmage overreaction to, just a little teaser. The college basketball is close. And a big thank you to Bird Darts as well. We're presented by Bird Darts. The graphic looks great on YouTube. And it's, big things happening on the pod. I'm really excited. It's going to be a very fun next couple of months. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are as well. I hope you follow along. Hope you tune in. Big thanks to everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all again soon.